Alright, what's guys, Keeping Coded? So clock is an event that I make fun of a lot on this channel. You know, basically every single chance that I get, I just poke fun at it, you know, just saying how I think that it's kind of a stupid event. However, recently with the removal of feed, there has been just a growing conversation of whether or not we should actually keep clock as a WCA event. So today, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about why we should remove clock, why we should keep clock, and just everything about the event that makes it so different. After that, I'll also give you guys my personal opinion on whether or not we should keep the event, so this should be a lot of fun. Before we do that though, I just want to remind you guys that if you are not subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend you do because we upload videos each and every single day. Guys, we're getting closer and closer to 100,000 subscribers, which honestly just excites me so much. You know, this channel is growing faster than I ever could have imagined, so if you can help continue that growth and make my dreams come true by subscribing to the channel, that would mean the world to me. Let's get into the video now, shall we? Alright, so first things first, we're just going to talk about reasons why we should remove clock. So the first reason is that clocks constantly fall over and have their pin states altered, which forces delegates to dedicate more time towards fixing these issues. Now, in order to avoid this problem of clocks just falling over and altering the scramble, many organizers make or purchase covers made just for clock so that the pins would not be pressed before giving it to the competitor. This just raises competition costs and also takes up extra space in the organizer's equipment storage. The next reason why we should remove clock is that clock just has a very small competitor base, and this has many implications that you may not think about. So the first implication is that it's just difficult to find scramblers for the event. It's safe to say that the majority of cubers do not know how to read clock scrambles, so right away it's just going to be difficult to find actual scramblers, and oftentimes the few people that do know how to scramble a clock are the ones actually competing in the event. And since it's impossible to compete and scramble at the exact same time, you end up having to split clock into two different groups despite having a very small amount of competitors. So for example, if you were organizing an event like 6x6 and we only had something like 10 competitors, we could probably run the entire round in just one group because anyone could scramble the event and anyone could time the event. However, for clock this is different. If you had 10 competitors in clock, chances are they're the only people that actually know how to solve a clock, so you're going to end up having to use those 10 people to switch off and just compete in two different groups, which makes competitions run a lot slower. The third reason for clock revolves around its hardware. So hardware for clock can be really problematic for scramblers because out of the box clocks are just very slow, which makes it a hassle to actually scramble. Once you actually break in the clock though, there's still problems because a broken in clock often falls apart really easily, so the scramblers are constantly going to have to fix the puzzle, which just makes it even more of a hassle. And the fourth reason to remove clock is that simply a lot of people in the community have been asking for it, and the removal of clock would satisfy those requests. Now, what are some reasons why we should keep clock? Well, the first reason is that it would simply disappoint a lot of cubers that enjoy clock. So when feat was discontinued, I know a lot of cubers personally that were really disappointed because it was an event that they put tons of work into, so when the event was removed, they felt that a ton of hard work just went wasted. And this same feeling will be felt by clock solvers. You know, a lot of clock solvers that put a ton of time into the event to become good at it will have all their hard work seem wasted. The next reason to keep clock is that clock is just a very unique puzzle and adds a lot to the WCA. Clock is currently the only puzzle in the WCA that only has orientation and not permutation. And the third reason to keep clock is that the event is just a unique challenge to cubers that isn't really found in other events. So there are the main points why we should remove and keep clock. Now let's just talk about some other points that should be taken into account when thinking about removing the event. So the first one is that the hardware has just completely stagnated. So the only clock being currently mass produced right now was created all the way back in 2014, and there has been zero updates since then. Now this is a really interesting point because for every single other event in the WCA, there has been massive strides in the hardware. For clock, however, the hardware has stayed the same all the way since 2014, and it doesn't seem like many companies are too interested in updating the hardware. The next point is that clock is not as enjoyable to watch as other events because it's difficult for spectators to tell how much progress has been made and whether or not the puzzle is solved or not. So this is definitely a valid point because for most events in speed cubing, you can definitely see them solving the cube and the progression of the puzzle being completed. However, for clock, the clock looks the exact same the entire time until they stop the timer, and this just does not make it as fun to watch as some other events. Next reason, clock has one of the lowest competitor counts of speed solving events, and as a result, removing it would affect a very small part of the competitor base while opening up more time for other events. Another point to take into account is that clock just overall adds very little to speed solving. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, the puzzle is very simple to solve and requires almost no knowledge to improve. A majority of the improvement is dependent on just turning faster, and there's overall been very little development that make it possible to improve in clock. And the final point to add is that clock is just very different from other events. You know, every single event in the WCA is a twisty puzzle. It's signified by 3D shapes with colors that you can turn. However, clock is just not like that. Despite the fact that it may just be a fun puzzle to solve, it has very little cohesion with the other events, which makes it kind of stick out like a sore thumb compared to the other events. Alright, so now that we talked about the main reasons why clocks should or should not be removed from the WCA, now we're going to go into my personal opinion. So personally, I feel that clocks should not be removed from the WCA, and I know that I make fun of clock way too much, and it may seem like I want it to be removed, but I actually don't. Now, why is that? Well, it's for the same reasons why I thought that feet shouldn't be removed from the WCA. It's because clock has already been added. It's an event that has been around for years now, and there's been a lot of people competing in it, and so removing the event would just kind of feel like a slap to the face to those that actually do enjoy it. Now, let's say if clock didn't exist in the WCA, then yes, there would be very little reason to actually add it into the WCA, but now that it's already in, the reasons to remove it, I feel like, have to be a little bit stronger. Now, as I discussed before, there are just a lot of problems with having the event out of your competition. You know, it slows it down, it increases the cost, just a ton of things that make it inconvenient to have. So I say if you don't want to have clock at a WCA competition, then don't run it. Now, you may then ask, what if you're running something like Nationals or something? Well then, yes, have it at Nationals. Now, that being said though, Nationals is a 3-day competition with multiple events going on at once. I feel like clock just wouldn't be that much of an impediment to such a big competition like that. Like, okay, yes, if you're having some small local competition with like 100 people with like 5 events and clock is one of them, then yes, that event will very much slow down the competition. But then for those competitions, then just don't run the event. And if you're at US Nationals, I feel like clock just wouldn't slow things down that much. And for the argument that there's just not really that many people that practice clock, so if you remove the event, you're not really affecting that many people, then yes, that's true. You know, how many people are really invested in clock? Not that many people. That being said though, there are still some of them. And I feel like one of the best things about cubing is just how inclusive it is. You know, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what you're like, you will be accepted into the cubing community and you will have a place in it. So because of that, removing an event from the WCA that some people may do may feel like the WCA is shutting them out, which I feel like kind of goes against the main appeal of cubing. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Despite me making fun of clock a ton, I do not think that it should be removed at the WCA event, because even though it may not be that many people that compete in it, there are still people that do, and I feel like removing the event would just not be fair to them. Alright, so anyways, that's the video. Guys, tell me what you think about this in the comments below. You know, I would love to see your opinion. Once again, if you are not subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend you because I upload videos each and every single day, and we're getting close and close to 100,000 subscribers, so might as well help out the channel. Alright, that's all for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.